What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another BTR podcast. Today, we're joined by a very special guest. He's a producer of Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi. He's also a former producer at Sportsnet 650 radio station here in Vancouver, joined by Raja Shergill. How's it going, brother?
Very good, man. Thank you guys for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. You guys are doing great work here at BTR. So good luck. Keep going forward and happy to be here.
Appreciate that, man. We gotta showcase the behind the scenes love to the front now. Right? We got Randip on before.
Yeah,
we've seen his face.
This is not your on camera debut, right?
No. I've been on camera. Yeah, I've been on camera a lot.
But like now you're gonna be like showing.
Yeah.
Like,
I think this is the biggest show I've been on camera for. You know, Hockey Night Punjabi aside, I think this might top that. Actually,
that's crazy. Appreciate
We're in
you.
your top 5. That's sick. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Before we get into just like your journey and all that, and he gets into the quick fire, just want to ask you this. Obviously, Surrey boy.
Yeah.
Grew up a Canucks fan.
Yeah.
You're a part of Hockey Night Canada Punjabi. How was it like being in the building during a Canucks playoff game finally? I think you may have done the bubble, but this one being like non-COVID related, how was that like?
You know, just to cover the Canucks after years of them not doing that well was like just so amazing. It's obviously when you get into the industry, like that's what you want to do. You want to cover a team at its peak, and obviously the team is still a long way to go. And it's not like 2011; they're obviously not cup contenders exactly yet.
Yeah.
But it was great. Like the fan base was alive. Like Surrey was alive. We saw 72nd and Scott. Like people were there, right? And yeah, you mentioned it. Like Bubble was there a little bit, but to see this team actually have like hope and a chance to win and to get to game 7, and obviously like the result for Canucks fans wasn't what they wanted it to be, but just to be there to cover it, to be a part of the atmosphere, to talk to fans, to talk to the players and the coaches, and like really get their opinion of what is actually happening here. Like I think when Rick Tocchet spoke, he was mentioning that the fans are so passionate here, and he can feel the energy right from Rogers Arena. Like that's amazing. We haven't gotten a chance to see that in so long, and obviously the team is finally at that point where we can hopefully start to see that a little bit more consistently. So it was really good.
I know it's probably because it just happened after a long time. Everyone just let it out
not as
all in one.
expected either.
All in one.
People
playoff
thought we
run,
might have made the playoffs.
I think playoffs was like the expectations, but playoffs were expectations, in my opinion, like probably 2, 3, 4 years ago, right? Like even in the bubble, like that's what a lot of people were hoping for. Can this team squeeze in? And they would just dwindle every time.
Even in the bubble performance, they're probably like expecting like, okay, now you've proven that you're a good team. Now you should be making the playoffs. Obviously, Benny had to ruin that, but like, but I think it's just because it's been so long. Everyone just let it all out.
Yeah.
Like even if we lost in the National Series, I think there would have been no issues. I think everyone just wanted to get that feeling of going to Scott Road and just celebrating.
Yeah.
And it's like you need that to kind of get the casual fans back into it, right?
Yeah.
Like the casual fans are right back into it now. They know this team is going to hopefully do bigger and better things next year, or at the very least, like get back into the playoffs. And this is a team that I'll keep my eye on. Whereas when they're not doing all that well, the casual fans not really paying attention, right?
So that's probably rose a lot of people's eyes as well. Like next year, yes, there are going to be expectations now.
Yeah.
So it's like he said, the bubble, there were expectations. Casual fans did wake up for that too. But then we all know what happened the next 2 years. Well, hopefully that continues. But I have a question for you. I know you're in Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi, so I don't know how much you could answer this. When the Canucks did get eliminated, were you anti-Oilers, or were you like a Canadian team used to win?
As like the Canucks fan in me is like anti any team that eliminates the Canucks.
Yeah, that's me too.
Right. Yeah. But like the Hockey Night Punjabi producer, analyst on that show, me is like, let's see the Canadian teams go far and do well. Right. Because at the end of the day, like we just talked about it right now. The city all came together. The city rose up. The same goes for any Canadian team, right? Even Toronto, right? People hate Toronto, but like whenever they do good, like that city's going to rise up, right? And we saw how it was when the Raptors won the championship in 2019. Could you imagine what it's going to be like if the Leafs ever get passed out of the first round, right? Like a third round, we might see what they do in the, So my point is like, that was obviously great, like for Canada, whenever a Canadian team does good. And like the question that you just asked, that's a question that everybody is going to be asking each other. Like when the Flames are in a certain round and the Winnipeg Jets are there, you're going to be saying, are you going for the Jets or are you going for the Flames? You know what I mean? Like those questions are always going to be there. So I think it's great. Like I'll be honest, I was going for the Oilers to at least get to the final because I wanted to see a Canadian team actually just make headwaves and finally get to that point. And once they got to the final, I'll be honest, I'm a big Roberto Luongo fan. So like for that reason, I was kind of going for the Panthers.
We differed for sure because I was anti-Oilers.
We're just looking for any reason just to hope the Oilers don't win.
Yeah, because like for me, it's like I am in the boat where if it's not the Canucks, I don't want any Canadian team to win. I'm on that boat. Exception is for both of us. Ironically, it's the Senators for some reason.
Senators, Jets, right?
Yeah.
Just like,
for me, it's the Senators
Jets.
more so. Not as much the Jets.
For me, Flames and Leafs, like no chance.
The reason why I was okay with the Oilers,
and
granted they beat us. Like to your point, I hated the Ducks because they beat us in 07. I hated the Blackhawks, right? But then like when it came to the Oilers, the only exception I had was Connor McDavid, right? At the end of the day, I love this. I love my team, but I also respect and love greatness. I want McDavid to win a cup. I want Draisaitl to win a cup. Yes, I would prefer them to do it on a different team, non-Canadian especially. But for the most part, I still want to see like the greats win. Like you could tell right here, we're huge Ovechkin fans. So when he finally won, that was like a different story. Like I did not hate Crosby or anything like that.
Definitely.
But I'm happy Crosby won. I want McDavid to win. You know, go any sport, right? Like I want, you're a Chargers fan. You said it. We'll talk about that later. But I'm a Justin Herbert fan. I want Justin Herbert to win. I want Lamar Jackson to win.
When I talk to like Oilers fans, right? Like one guy's on my team. I'm like I wasn't necessarily rooting for you guys, but I respect what you guys did.
Definitely.
Right?
I wasn't, put it this way, I wasn't actively going against them, right? Like I was, again, hoping that they would get to a certain point. Obviously I wanted the Canucks to win, but you're right. Like you want to see greatness win. And that's why like I thought if I was an Oilers fan, I think that's one thing that I can kind of have solace in is that in the NHL, especially and in all sports, but especially the NHL, when you're at a certain level of athlete, a certain level of player, like you're probably going to win a cup. Like Ovechkin is at that level where I never doubted it. Like he's going to get there, right? Crosby obviously has gotten there. Lemieux, Gretzky, all those guys, like they're at the very peak of what they do. They've won cups and if not multiple cups. So McDavid is obviously at that level. Yeah. I don't have any doubt he's going to win a Stanley Cup in his career. So that's one thing that the Oilers fans can look forward to. But on the flip side of the coin, will it actually happen in Edmonton or not? Like we don't know about that. Right?
But yeah, no, like it's like to your point. Like, I think football was a tough one, especially with Brady existing. But like almost any like NBA, like LeBron eventually won. It doesn't matter how he did. KD eventually won. It doesn't matter how people reviewed him.
You forget everything before
exactly, right? So like at the end of the day, like the baseball is a little tough, but not really. But then the one I'm worried about, obviously, I think Shohei will get it. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about Mike Trout not winning.
Right.
For me, I don't know how much of a baseball guy you are, but like I want to see Mike Trout win, but he's stuck on the Angels. Yeah. But
not big of a. But I mean, obviously, I understand. Mike Trout and how great of a player he is.
Regarded as like.
But the Angels is like that's a tough situation.
You're not a baseball fan, but you know how much of a dumpster fire they're at right now. Right? Yeah. But we'll talk some more sports later. Let's get to your journey. Sure. But before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, we're gonna start off with some quick fire questions. Your favorite things. Starting off with your favorite sports. And obviously, I feel like hockey is one of them. So,
hockey,
any other ones? Yeah,
with the bullet, hockey is number one. Like that's what I grew up with. Been a hockey fan since I was like 4 years old, as much as I remember. And obviously, if I had to pick a second one after that, would probably be football, NFL.
Favorite sports teams?
Canucks is what I grew up with. Obviously, as a producer of Canada Punjabi, now I'm impartial.
Impartial.
Exactly. We cheer for the outcome of the games to not go to overtime. That's what we cheer for. And then LA Chargers are my favorite football team.
Favorite athletes?
Roberto Luongo, as we mentioned, grew up with him, obviously as a Canucks fan, one of the greatest to ever do it. Grew up with Phillip Rivers, for whatever reason, like obviously in an era where Tom Brady and all these players were like killing it. I think I just happened to turn on NFL one day. He was playing, he did well, and for whatever reason I ended up liking Phillip Rivers. But hockey is like my main sport, and Roberto Luongo is what I grew up with. Marcus Naslund was a huge Marcus Naslund fan. I've always been a fan of players who are able to score, fight, assist, pick up points. So like a Jerome McGinley, I always loved watching power forwards play. So some like those three guys.
So that means in 2020, right? Or whenever he was on the Colts, Phillip Rivers, you were probably a Colts fan for that playoff run.
I don't know, man. No, but you know what? Like, you guys have the Colts thing right there. My buddies are Colts fans. Yeah. So whenever, like, I can't stand the Colts because of them. I get what you mean. Like they cheer for them. I'm like, screw you guys. Like,
Hey, one thing about Rivers, he's a tough SOB.
Oh yeah.
What, didn't he play with like a torn ACL or something?
Yeah, and crazy, and he doesn't swear. Like, you know that? Like, he never swears.
Like, God damn it! Or like,
gosh darn. Like,
he has 10 kids.
He's got like 10 kids. Yeah. Every year, like we would do like with some of my friends, like we would do who's gonna have more wins, the Chargers or is Phillip Rivers gonna have more kids?
Yeah.
Like, is he gonna be over or under?
It's actually a fair debate.
Exactly.
Next one is favorite food.
I like gonna keep it simple, like pizza. As simple as that. I guess pretty boring, but I'm a big seafood guy actually. I love sushi as well. But generally speaking, I love a good pizza. Punjabi food.
Is it the classic still?
Butter chicken, man.
Butter chicken.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm pretty basic when it comes to my food. Here's what I don't like spice. And if anybody, all of the people who know me, they know me. I can't handle any spice.
Damn.
So whatever food that is, no matter whether it's pizza, whether it's whatever, has to be fikka, no spice whatsoever.
I mean, you'll love chaat papri then. Still, like the
yeah,
classic
like,
part
of course, definitely.
Yeah.
Just as long as it doesn't burn my tongue.
Any hobby outside of sports?
I love writing. I love doing this, man. I love broadcasting. I love talking about sports. I love again writing about sports, writing about music, being part of like the media industry, editing, those kinds of things. Like even if I'm not working, like that's something that I always do in my free time, is just kind of whipping out sort of a free Word document and just kind of scribing, and whether it's about sports, whether it's just about like personal stuff, like I'm a big writer and I love obviously just kind of looking into what's kind of the latest trends in the media industry.
Just getting any type of content out, basically.
Yeah, and even if it's not getting it out, just kind of getting your thoughts out, or you know what I mean, just kind of trying to stay fresh in those kinds of things.
Just keep your creative juices flowing, basically.
Definitely, exactly. And other than that, like just music. I love Punjabi music. That's kind of what I've always grew up listening to, whether from the early 2000s to now. Like, I've been a big Punjabi music fan, so always trying to keep up with what's going on in that scene. Favorite movie or movie series? Ooh, favorite movie. I'm not a big movie guy, but Hangover.
That's definitely a first on the
podcast. We have a funny story about The Hangover.
Yeah.
I was like, when we went to college school, so my mom had to work early.
Yeah.
So she
was
dropped,
in high school then.
Yeah, she dropped us off at her cousin's house, right? And then there we just put on some random movies. And I think I was in grade 2 or something like that.
I want to say, so I was in grade 8, you were grade 2.
Or like grade 1 or 2, something like that.
They had, it's Jeevan guys.
Okay.
So we were at, Jeevan obviously. Yeah. They would have they had it like on their PVR.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I heard about this movie. I put it on. And then like, obviously, like this is 6 a.m. We're watching Hangover.
Right before school.
Right before school. I didn't watch the other 2 though.
And I'm like 7 years old.
I watched the first 2, which I really liked.
Yeah.
I'm not a big movie guy, like I said, but I watch like my favorite show, if you were to ask me, is Breaking Bad.
That is the next question.
Yeah, Breaking Bad. I love Breaking Bad.
So we're definitely the opposite in that sense. Like show wise, we're not big. I guess like Ted Lasso, we're happy it's coming back for season 4. We love that.
Cobra Kai.
It was a big one. We watched Squid Game, that followed the trend,
Yeah.
and then it was Ballers, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe we watched one more show. I don't fully remember, but movie wise, we're actually like more in the Punjabi movie side a little bit more now than we are.
I'm not a big TV guy in general.
Yeah,
like again,
I get what you're saying though.
All of my kind of whatever I watch on
Except
TV is mostly all sports,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, I might be the only person who sells cable. Like, and the only reason I have cable is just for sports.
Yeah.
Right. Because I find streaming it to be just too much of a hassle. I'm like, just throw it on Sportsnet, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always watching some sort of sports on TV.
Favorite singer / rapper?
Right now you got to say Karan Aujla, right? Like just killing the Punjabi music scene.
Were you at the concert?
I was at the concert. Yeah,
Okay.
Great concert. Obviously he's just his story personally is great.
Yeah.
And he's able to make so much different kinds of music. He's pretty diverse, right? He's able to sing, he's able to rap, and where he's at currently is amazing. And then obviously, right, you could probably say above him is Diljit Dosanjh, and you talk about somebody who's just been part of every era and how he's transformed himself. It's amazing. Like started off as like a very folk singer, Bhangra style music, to do what he's doing now. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Yeah.
And he's
Diljit?
really just taken over. Yeah, Diljit.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like I view him as like we both actually view him as a big Punjabi superstar because he does movies.
Oh yeah,
as well,
definitely.
right?
Yeah,
And a lot of his
superstar.
movies, some of his movies are the classic rom-com, whatever. They're funny to watch. Some of them, might not have been the great rating style.
Yeah.
But it's like the ones that are like Surma, his field hockey movie was really good.
Yeah.
Punjab 1984. Like he has like some of those serious movies that have been really,
and he did
really
well
good
in
as well.
and did well in the Chamkila movies as
I
well.
haven't watched that, but I heard.
Yeah.
I
It's
heard
just
good
his
stuff.
versatility, and he's
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
adapt to
And
like
he
the
is,
times.
like you mentioned, like legitimate superstar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, last one it will be, if not your job or media or anything, what do you think you'll be doing?
I don't know. Like I've always kind of pictured myself in this. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to play in the NHL, but I never played hockey. So I was like, okay, well, how do I get to the NHL? Well, this is a way, right? You can talk about sports, talk about hockey. And so I've never really pictured myself doing anything other than this. And it doesn't always have to be in front of the camera. Like, obviously, when you're growing up, that's kind of what you want to do. But ever since I've been in the industry, I've fallen in love with the editing side, the behind the scenes side, the producing side. So yeah, I don't know if I have another answer for that other than maybe hopefully playing in the NHL if I was a player.
It's either that or probably jobless for me. That's what I would probably say.
Yeah.
I'm like
Professional sports watcher.
yeah, exactly.
Let's transition off that. Let's stick with that right there. So fun fact is all three of us obviously went to the same high school.
Yeah.
You're a year younger than me. Obviously he's 6 years younger than me. Growing up, so obviously me and you were in that same time range. How did you get into the media scene? Because obviously you mentioned you were a sports guy, right? You could touch on that as well. Like, how did you get into sports? But then how did you get into the media side of things when growing up, we didn't really have anyone like local, specifically Surrey area to fall under, right? I know the Randip Jandas were there, but I'm just saying in general that way.
Yeah, like, I don't know. For me, it was just, again, a big passion, right? Like, big passion for hockey. Like I mentioned, like, honestly, when I was a kid, I did want to play in the NHL, but we're Punjabi. Your parents are going to put you in soccer. They're going to put you in very specific sports, right? Yeah. And I wasn't a great athlete. Like, I was a terrible soccer player, right? And so hockey was my number one passion, and I knew that I somehow wanted to go into that realm because I was very obviously passionate about it, and I thought I was pretty knowledgeable about it as well. So, early high school days, even elementary, like I knew I wanted to go into this route, and then once kind of grade 11, 12 coming as you start to look into colleges, I found a couple of schools that did it. I found out that BCIT was one of the better ones in BC and in Canada, and that was a school that a lot of alumni in the news industry and the media industry in general, and obviously in sports as well, where they attended. So right after grade 12, that's where I went. I did a couple of prereqs in my first year. Then I did the full year program at BCIT, and it was great. Like, obviously I was lucky enough to make some great connections, make some great friends. And, that's kind of what put me in the position to where I am now. But in high school, like, everybody knows me in high school as one of the hockey guys, right? Like, obviously everybody was a big Canucks fan for the most part. But like, everyone knew that I was like the hockey guy, right? There was a handful of us, and I always just kind of wanted to follow that route. And, I kind of just made sure that I was going to.
Did you eventually play growing up? Because, like, obviously, again, we're a year apart, so our high school paths crossed. Yeah. They had, like, our high school had intramural hockey, like, it was after school hockey.
Yeah.
I played 1 year. Have you played?
I think I played maybe a year, but not much, man. Like, again, I wasn't really an athlete. Like, I sucked at sports. I still suck at sports. Like, trust me, I'm terrible, right? Like, I've played like in one of our ball hockey. I used to play ball hockey like outside of school. Yeah. And like even then, like I played because I just loved the game. Yeah. But I was never good. Like I was always one of the more worst players on my team, right? Had like one goal, if that, a year, right? There was 1 year where I popped off, had like 10 goals. It was like 16 games, right? Like I just went off, right? Other than that, I just came right back down to earth. And then, but no, like intramurals, like I think I might have played a couple of times, but I never actually like played fully because again, I just never really had the interest in it either, right? Like I'm like, I suck. I don't care to run and waste my breath, right? Like, so, no, I didn't play that much at Tamanawis, but going to like outside of school, I did it for a little bit, yeah.
So what is this? Was it a situation that you loved hockey so much, I have to do something with hockey? Yeah. Or did you really like the media side as well?
I know I loved I loved hockey. Like that's where it stemmed from, right? I grew up watching Sportsnet News, right? Like my idols were Don Taylor. Like Don Taylor's the reason I'm doing this. Jim Houston, he was my favorite commentator, right? I just love his delivery, his style. I remember like he was the voice of the Canucks when I was growing up, and he was also the voice of the EA Sports games for a while. So like that's what I would play and that's what I would watch, and it was all Jim Houston. And then in the mornings before school, Sportsnet News, what it was called when I grew up, and Don Taylor was the one doing it, and Craig McEwen, CMAC, was one of the reporters, and he ended up being my boss. And right, so like, growing up, like the media personalities were the ones that I like always kind of gravitated towards on TV, and those were the people that I looked up to. And obviously, hockey was a big part of it. Like that was what piqued my interest. But then watching the people on Sportsnet, on TSN, that's kind of why I always wanted to be like them, and I always kind of like looked at how certain people did their deliveries. Like Don Taylor's obviously Don Taylor is obviously very popular for the way he delivers highlights.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that's something that always stuck with me. So, it's obviously the sport itself, but the broadcasters really is what what I connected with.
Yeah, so like me and you are actually similar in a lot of ways, because like you said, you weren't the greatest at sports, but you played for fun. I was the same with soccer. He had the athletic genes more so than us. Plus, he played with them. He obviously growing up.
I did play more. Yeah,
he played we put him started him earlier in soccer, and he played obviously Derek, that was his coach for a little bit.
Yep.
I coached him, right? So I actually enjoyed the coaching aspect too. It was just it was a headache at times, right? Especially if you're just volunteering, so you're not really getting paid as well for his team. But even to your point, I guess the big difference between what you did and what I did or we did together was like you kind of got into the media scene as soon as you possibly could.
Yeah.
I guess like for us, you found a route. Whereas we didn't really find that route, and we're doing that now.
Yeah.
But growing up, that's why I asked the earlier question, being that one, you said Don Taylor, you said Craig McEwen and all these guys, but you didn't name a Punjabi guy right at that time. So it was for us, it was like, how do we get into it? How do we get paid? Found out YouTube is a way, but it still takes time.
That's the thing. Like when I was growing up, you mentioned Randip, Randip, the Hockey Night Punjabi scene was there when I was growing up. We launched in 2008 on CBC, so obviously I was still in grade 5 or 6 then.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But it wasn't it wasn't as well established, right? I don't know if it was on every week. I remember when I first started growing up and watching it, it was only the game itself.
Yeah.
And it was not, no intermissions, no pregame really, I don't think, no postgame. Yeah. Right? So it was really only the call, and it was interesting to see it, but it wasn't fully formed. It wasn't really flourished, right? And obviously it was very niche. Right, it was only.
I mean, my dad was on it.
It was only Hockey Night Punjabi,
yeah,
and only Punjabi people watching it. And if you look at now, where the broadcasters are at, obviously Randip is a color commentator of the Canucks, right, on English.
Yeah.
Harnaran Singh is on Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, the English side, as the national voice of hockey in Canada.
Yeah.
Right, and that's amazing to see how far we've come. But growing up, that wasn't there, and so for me coming into it, one of the things that I did think of, I can be one of the first that is actually talking hockey. And I'm so glad now, for Hockey Night Punjabi, for it to be where it's at now, where we have a larger reach and we're able to do so much, and we're able to be in the community, and we're able to talk to fans, we're able to really connect with people. And, it's great to see how far it's come. And it's great to see that we've got such a large team now of broadcasters on air that are so talented at what they do. Obviously, they're knowledgeable about the game itself, and their Punjabi, being Canadian born, is amazing. That's, you guys know it. Growing up in Canada, no matter how much you speak Punjabi at home, if you live with grandparents, it makes it a little bit easier, but it's still different than, you go back to India and they're going to still probably make fun of the way you speak Punjabi.
We're not going to have big words.
It's still tough, right? Yeah. And for us, and everybody here is Canadian, on our show is Canadian born, and Punjabi is top notch. And, it's great to see how far we've come, really. And like I mentioned, on air guys are great, but we've got a full supporting core of people behind the scenes as well. So yeah, it's honestly great. And just to see really where not only the people that are with the show today, but our alumni of the show are making great headlines, making great headwaves in the media game itself. Nathan Sekon, who I took over for, he's one of the big producers over at Global News. So is Bhupinder Hundal. He's one of the big producers over at Global News. Amrit Gill is doing her thing in Toronto.
Yeah.
Right. So we have such a great team and a great alumni. And like I mentioned, Harn Ryan as well. So it's really grown so much, and it's really it just makes me feel really happy, right? Because that wasn't there for us when we were kids. And, we've got people on our show now that watched the show when they were kids, and, they're 21 years old. Yeah. And to them, they had people to look up to, and for them to be on the show now, that's obviously amazing.
It's honestly for us to start this, yes, you, how you said it, now you, because I've heard your name. Like I said, I didn't know you personally in high school, but I heard your name along with the other guys you mentioned of Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi, mixed with the local creators that are going, guys like Chudney, guys like Parm vs. the World, and these guys, where Hours Before Midnight is the biggest one that kind of got us to, let's do this. So that's a thank you to you guys, because if it wasn't for that, we probably would not be sitting here talking right now, right? We wouldn't be here doing our own sports podcast. Definitely, and especially that way, because it's not even just hockey's the biggest sport in Canada. We get that and all that, but Randip, for example, as well. he's knowledgeable. He's a big sports fan like us. Like,
Generally.
like obviously we were talking off camera. We're big sports guys. You see the pictures, walls here and everything. And like we were talking to him even on camera, off camera about like different sports. So it's like it's not even. It's a possibility to grow. Like maybe not hockey night kind of Punjabi. Maybe there's like a spin-off like sports night in Punjabi.
Yeah,
and
agree.
A couple of your colleagues, the Harp and there, and I forget the other one that are doing CFL.
Yeah,
right, for the Lions, for the BC Lions too.
Yeah.
So and Punjabi commentary. So it's already starting an evolution there. And
Definitely.
CEBL, I think it's I forgot his name.
Jagraj, yeah, he was able to
So,
call
like,
a game there.
it's
He's our
definitely-
social media person.
Yeah, it's definitely on the rise.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the big thing.
Yeah,
for
no,
us.
definitely, and it's a testament to obviously us as South Asians, us as Punjabi people, right? To see like the amount of headway that we made in this country, and obviously the work that we've done showing, it's really coming to fruition, right? The work that we've done for us to kind of get that main stage now and kind of present not only our community, but to kind of present Canadian sports, in a language that obviously is so near and dear to our heart.
And also, like when you're looking at it, like in terms of Surrey, right? Like Surrey's a little bit badnaam, right? All the drama happening. Like we can see this, like people like you, Randip, and other athletes are coming up from Surrey.
Yeah.
It's just a
Randip
good.
the Vancouver wala ya.
Oh, yeah. he's a Dutchman now.
I always make sure to tell him.
We're all like Surrey. It has a bad name, right?
Yeah.
We all know that, but like when it comes to its sports and stuff, and seeing everything like how it grown is actually really good as well.
Man, yeah, I'm obviously like a Surrey, like born and raised, proud Surrey resident. Like, I'm always trying to rep it as much as I can. Like again, I grew up down the road from you guys. Honestly, like I don't know, like people obviously won't be able to tell where we're recording, but honestly, like just down the road, 2-minute walk. Like that's where I grew up, and in the house in the corner right there, right on 24. Like, and so it's crazy. Like that's it's like I've been here my whole life, and you're right. Like it has that bad name to it, but if you look at how much it's grown, it's crazy how much it's grown.
Like I asked him off camera in general, like and just in general, I'm like, bro, would we? You know how you see these big names move to LA, New York, Toronto. I'm like, what would you go to LA and stuff? He's like, bro, unless we have absolutely no choice, I want to stay here and put this, like you said perfectly, put this name on the map. Yeah. And guys like Jeevan, guys like Arshdeep Bains, in terms of athlete wise, guys like yourself, Harman Dayal, and the media scene now. Are carrying that name, and which is a good thing to see. And then that's what's inspiring us. Like, we need to show people that, like, hey, it's not just gang violence here. There's more too.
No, definitely, man. And sports is one thing, but like obviously the art scene here and the music scene, right? And what we've kind of been seeing, the rise of Surrey is tremendous. Like, and again, that's makes me so happy. The athletes that we're seeing here, Jeevan, as you mentioned, right? There's a handful of NHL players. There's a young girl in the LPGA, right? And she's Punjabi. Like, it's amazing to see like how far we've really come and to kind of shake off that reputation, because that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like there's stories that I heard from, when I was at BCIT talking to people that obviously aren't Punjabi and people that aren't from Surrey. Like they would talk to me about like what they thought Surrey was like, and they were like, well, you must be scared walking on the street. Like,
I had the exact same thing at work.
Right? I'm like, you must be scared walking on the street at 9 p.m. I'm like, why would I be scared? Like, right? It's awesome. Like, it's a great city. It's not like,
it will have sketchy areas for sure. Like we all,
but
know
everywhere
that.
does.
But that's
everywhere does,
does,
right? And so, like, I think we finally gotten to that point where we can shake off the reputation. I think you go down towards Central City and you see the evolution of that, right? It's really starting to look like a downtown, and people sometimes make fun of me for calling that like downtown Surrey. I tell them, I'm like, go to Walmart's website and go to the Central City location. It says there downtown, right? Because we got our own downtown now, right? Like it's starting to actually become a major city. And there's been talks about creating a stadium or an arena here, and at some point that's going to happen. I think we'll probably get some sort of a professional sports team here, right? Obviously probably not like an NHL NBA level, but like we'll get something that we can kind of like be big fans of and have a supporting cast of athletes that play here,
like a CPL like type thing, right? Canadian
Exactly,
Premier League, something like that.
Going back to you for a sec here now, so where did you start exactly? Was it Hockey Night Canada Punjabi or was it Sportsnet 650?
It was Hockey Night Punjabi. Yeah, Hockey Night Punjabi.
So how did that opportunity come again, and then how did the Sportsnet 650 opportunity come?
Well, so BCIT does a great job of actually, bringing in industry professionals to talk to students. And when I was there in my first year, one of the people who came there to talk to the students was Bhupinder Handal, who at that time was an on-air talent at Hockey Night Punjabi and also did a little bit of producing for the show as well. And I went to Bhupinder and I just talked to him and I just like got some advice from him and things like that. And I can read and write Punjabi. I asked him about that, like how would that help me? He's like, yeah, probably not much, right? But he's like, as long as you can speak it, like that's obviously good to have. And so, you know, I always just kind of kept in touch. Like the one thing they tell you in the industry is like it's all about connections, it's all about who you know. And you know, I was writing for a WWE, like a wrestling website. You know, when I was still at BCIT, and I think Jinder Mahal had just become champion, like WWE champion. Around there. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of need a voice for this story to kind of like talk to somebody about like what this means for the Punjabi community. And, you know, so I reached out to Bhupinder, I kind of emailed him, and he kind of had seen some of my work, and he saw how eager I was. And, you know, when there was an opportunity the following year at Hockey Night to join the show, he reached out to me and asked if I would like to come on the show. And I said, for sure. Right. And obviously I was thrilled to come on the show, and started off as like an assistant producer or production assistant, where you're basically doing everything they ask of you, cutting viz, you know, creating graphics, whatever it might be, whatever they ask of you. And then after that, slowly worked my way up, got some on-air opportunities, and now I'm the producer of the show. Sportsnet 650 was probably about 10 months after that, at BCIT, through BCIT as well. Internships happen after your final year there. So you got to choose a place to intern. And I interned in a handful of places, but Sportsnet was one of them. And then at the end of my internship, I was lucky enough that they needed some people, and they hired me out of my internship. And worked there for 5 years, mostly, again, just doing whatever they needed me to do. And then slowly but surely kind of got the opportunity to be on air, had my own show for a bit. Mostly produced. But yeah, loved it, obviously.
So how much is it like you actually put yourself out there, right? Like this thing didn't come to you. You're like, no, I want this, and I'm gonna put my name out there. I'm gonna go up to Binder and be like, yeah, I'm the guy to do this. How much is it like that? Or because you didn't sit back, right? So like how important it was for you to go out there and take that opportunity.
Yeah, it is. And we talked about it off camera too. Like everybody who knows me, I'm pretty introverted. Like I am a little bit of a quieter guy. I don't really talk a whole lot. It's tough for me to go out there and maybe introduce myself, for example. But at that time you kind of have to, like, you know, if I hadn't done that with the Pinder back then, who knows, right? Like we wouldn't be sitting here right now, maybe, right? Like, and so you have to kind of take those opportunities, as much as like opportunities, if you do put your head down and you work hard, like, yeah, they can come to you and people will notice your work, and you should do that. But you also have to go out there and make sure that people see what you're doing, and make sure that you're introducing yourself to people and showcasing the skills that you've learned and skills that you can actually do for, you know, an organization. And like, you know, what you guys are doing right here, like this is, you know, great stuff. Like people, this opportunity, you know, didn't come calling. Like you guys made it happen, right? And so like to see the growth that you guys have done now, like it's amazing, because, you know, you guys were obviously planning on doing this, like you mentioned, for a long time, and now you guys did it. And you guys are obviously, you know, doing such a good job with it.
I appreciate that for sure. But going back to Sportsnet 650, young Raja watching Sportsnet news on this couch TV. How much of that was like a dream that you were associated with Sportsnet when you got there?
Yeah, huge. It was crazy. Like you can't even fathom it, right? Like, you know, again, like I told you, like Craig McEwen was a guy that I watched on TV all the time, and he was my boss, right? Like I wasn't even. Like forget about like all the, you know, you talk about athletes, you talk about people in the industry that are, people like within the sports game that you think are just so like larger than life, right? These athletes that you see on TV that you look up to, like put that aside to a second. I was like blown away by some of these personalities, right? It was amazing to be a part of that brand. It was amazing to be a part of the sports industry in Vancouver, right? Obviously, I grew up listening to TSN 1040 or Team 1040 at the time, and got into the industry at a time when we were rivals with them, right? So totally stopped listening to them in a while, but it was so interesting just to be a part of that era of like, you know, a radio kind of war. And, you know, it was just amazing to like every opportunity that came. I again, just count my blessings, because I was really happy to be a part of it. But you're right. Like Sportsnet News is what you grew up with. TSN's what you grew up with. And now you're affiliated with these people and with this company, and, you know, getting a chance to put that even in your bio, something so like, it's so like mundane and small, but it means so much. Right. And like, obviously I'm so proud to be affiliated with the company still. Hockey Night is obviously a property of Sportsnet.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to obviously be a part of that company, and the work that we do obviously is representative of Sportsnet and of the Canadian sports audience.
I mean, that's our version of ESPN, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's nothing bigger than Sportsnet TSN. And it was funny because we brought up Randip. We're like, so how much of it is actually a rivalry? He's like, yeah, he mentioned the radio wars a little bit because we were 1040 guys. We didn't know 650 existed till like, I'm like, wait, why is the Canucks game not on 1040 anymore? And then obviously the rights went over to 650, right? And then like now, like the guys we listen to the most at 1040 is now on 650, which is Halford and Bruff.
Yeah.
And obviously they made the switch over because 1040 layoffs. Now everybody hates Bell Media because of that. Obviously, I'm not gonna let you talk on that because you're gonna get in trouble. But no, it's like, it's just like, yeah, it's like, it's always like that dream. It's like how like Archie Baines, for example, grew up a Canucks fan. And now he's a Vancouver Canucks player.
Definitely.
It's the same. This is the media version of that.
Yeah.
Right. So
for sure. And yeah, exactly. Like, and you know, when you're part of the industry, like you realize like how big it really is. Like you're talking to players, like, you know, I've gotten a chance to interview NHL players, NBA players, you know, NFL players, you know, media, Brian Burks of the world, and you know, all of these people like probably can't even name. Like, you know, it's amazing to like actually, you know, when you're in it, you're obviously working and you don't get to think about it, but when you kind of take a step out of it, it's surreal to think about, like, you know, the kinds of people that you've gotten a chance to meet, people that you've gotten a chance to interview, that you've got a chance to talk to, even whether it's on camera or behind the mic or not. So like, it's, you know, it's obviously such a great journey. It's something that you obviously dream about. And yeah, very, very fortunate that I got a chance to live that.
You had a stint with Omni as well.
Yeah.
And in Omni, you got to interview up and coming athletes.
Yeah.
One of them happened to be our cousin, Jeevan Bidwal, who's part of the Whitecaps FC2 program, has been called up to the first team, and since then. So not just Jeevan aside too, but including Jeevan, how cool is it for you to interview up and coming young athletes, Archie Baines being one of them as well? And I don't know how many else you've done, but like those two and anyone else, any stories you have, just being there to, you know, hey, I get to showcase you. And once they become big, it's like, damn, like I was there when on his rise.
Yeah.
How cool is that feeling when you got to do that?
Yeah,
those type of interviews.
That's great, because you're right. Like a lot of these athletes are so young, and like we just talked about Surrey, a lot of them are, like, some of them were in Toronto too, but a lot of them are Surrey based.
Yeah.
Right. They're in our own backyard. So to kind of grow with them, it feels right. Like to kind of showcase their story to the world and have that be their coming out party. Like it feels great to say that, like, this person in your own backyard that you might not know right now is doing such a great job in his field, and Jeevan or whoever it might be is going to do such a great job of inspiring the next generation, because that is what you end up, like, that is what kids end up looking up to. Yeah. Right. Kids are going to look at the next Jeevan or at the next whoever it might be. And so, it's tremendous for, obviously, to be able to tell their story, because these are young Punjabi people and you don't get to see a whole lot of that in sports.
Yeah.
But it's people that are in your own backyard. It's people that stories that are so unique and so great and so close to home, right? Yeah. Like when I got a chance to interview Jeevan, like I didn't know that he lived right here. Like he lived like in the heart of Surrey, right? Like houses that you drive by every day. Houses, like I said, this is like, I consider this my neighborhood, right? And so like it's so amazing to see all those stories. Another young golfer, like I mentioned, I got an interview, Angela Aurora. She's from Surrey as well, and she, I think, went to Frank Hurt Secondary, and you know, she made her LPGA debut, and I got an opportunity to interview her right after her debut, right? And she's on the golf course with girls and women that
Brooke Henderson and
she looked up to, right? And that's amazing. And so to showcase these stories, like, it's great. And like you mentioned, like the better that they get in their sport and the higher that they get in the ranks, there's more people, there's going to be more golfers, there's going to be more Angelas, there's going to be more Jeevans, and there's going to be a lot more people, you know, in the sport of basketball, in the sport of hockey, because of the Punjabi people from their community that have the same background as them. Yeah. You know, and to showcase their stories, like, obviously
the one thing we always ask ourselves is, like, we actually have a lot of talent. Like, you go to Newton, pull up, like, some ballers there, right? Yeah. But now, like, because of these guys, now we actually finally might actually get an opportunity to see more in the future, right? Whereas before, we're like we had Derek on before, like he's like, there was no opportunity to grow, right? Like when he played soccer, like once you're done U18, like say you're HPL, next step is Whitecaps. Not everybody makes Whitecaps. There's nothing below that, right? but now they have a WSC2 program and obviously all their youth teams as well.
Yeah.
So they're doing and college route as well. Like there's like much more opportunity, much more route to actually like, grow your game and potentially actually make the next level if you're not ready at U18.
And not even just that, like we went to Tamanwis.
Yeah.
Our school was one of the best basketball schools. Like why is it like we had Sukjot Baines,
definitely,
who was the best player in BC. So it's like we have the talent. Now whether they chose to not go further, that's up to them. But it's like damn, like we like for example, Nations Cup in Richmond, like you've heard of that, the soccer tournament, right?
Yeah.
Team India is either in the finals or winning it all every time. Derek's played in it. Paul Bhaiya has played in it. The guys that we went to high school play in it, right? So it's like the talent is there, and it's glad now, like the up and coming young ones, like you mentioned, and then obviously the biggest name out there for hockey is Arshdeep Baines. Guys, people over at Upper Hockey doing a big job over there promoting the hockey side of things. Brown Ballers promoting all the Punjabis, not just in Surrey or in BC, but around Canada, around the world as well, right? So it's like it's great to see, and then obviously you showcasing the story is a big factor in that too, which is obviously a surreal feeling for you. It's like, damn, like I was there.
Yeah, totally. And it's crazy. Like you mentioned it, like, all of these athletes, the talent has always been there. It's just about getting to that next level, and real life situations happen, right?
Yeah.
Like people would rather go towards education perhaps, or, again, getting to the next level. It's not easy, right? Like
sometimes they get injured.
Injuries happen. Like, so it's not easy, but like to finally see a little bit of a shift in that regard is obviously great for our community.
You also had a commentary debut as well. I saw, like, when I was looking through your social media a little bit. How was that experience calling a game in Punjabi?
Oh, great. Yeah, I think I made my on-air Hockey in Punjabi debut in 2020, I believe, was my color commentary debut. And then I think the one you're referring to was my like kind of desk analyst debut, which I got to do this past year. And it's obviously fantastic. Like being on air and being able to kind of broadcast a language that, broadcast in a language for a sport that you've watched your entire life was a dream come true. And it's different because in broadcast school they tell you like always speak conversationally, like try to speak in your broadcast the way that you're speaking, you and I, right? Punjabi on air is very different. It's a lot more formal, right? You're not going to talk in Punjabi on air the way that you and I are talking. It's very different, right? Might not translate over, exactly. Might not translate over very well, right? So it was a little bit of a learning curve actually, and the way you speak is, again, it's a lot more prim and proper. So that was obviously a learning curve, but it was something that was so like such a great learning curve for me, right? Like now I have that kind of experience in my back pocket that if I do need to tell a story in Punjabi, which I did a lot for Omni, right? They were all in Punjabi, those stories we're talking about with Jeevan and stuff. Like now I have that skill set to do that. And again, it's your mother language, right? It's your mother tongue. You don't, again, you grew up speaking it at your house, but you never think that you're going to be doing this. You're going to make a career out of doing this. And it's really a true skill set to have a language like that you can kind of, show off to people, because, I've talked to people in the in the sports industry that don't speak Punjabi. And then they look at our show for Hockey Night and they're like, wow, you guys do such a great job, because our language naturally and our culture naturally is just, it's got such a rich heritage. It's so flamboyant, it's loud, it's very artsy, right? And so to kind of showcase that part of it to the world is great.
Yeah, it's not even just like being in Surrey, but it's like for you, the Punjabi language is important.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Even though you watch guys like Don Taylor, it's like, okay, now I could do this in Punjabi after meeting guys like Bhupinder Hundal and Hunter Ryan Singh. So it's like, obviously you want to show like, hey, this doesn't have to be just English speaking people, Punjabi speaking. And if anything, we Punjabis like to hype up a lot of things too. So what better way to promote the game and maybe future sports than a Punjabi commentator? For example, the Bonino call.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all energy.
Yeah.
Right. It's all energy, that call, and that's what we're about, right? Or it's about having that energy. It's about showcasing what we're all about. Or, Punjabi people, we're great at art, we're great at music, right? And we always, for our show Hockey Night Punjabi, we try to incorporate that into our goal calls, into whether it's our analysis or whatever it might be. If you watch the show, you'll see that there's always a little bit of a reference to either a movie, a show, a natak, or music, right? Like there's always references to that history, because that's what everybody has their story of that, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're not a big Nautic watcher, right? Which I'm not. My mom was, or my grandma was.
Yeah.
And you probably get the reference, or you'll hear it somewhere.
You'll get the reference like someone just gets slapped and just somehow freaking hung themselves in the curtain.
Yeah, totally. Right? And with the music, like, you might not be a big music fan, but you you still, to a certain degree at least, will relate to it, or you'll at least understand where it's from, and you'll connect with it, right? So we try to incorporate a lot of that into us, because that's what being a Punjabi is, and we try to showcase that.
So how was it like working with Randip and Harnaran Singh and the other people as well?
Totally. Like, Randip, Harnaran is, like, first of all, the team is amazing, right? Like, everybody on our team does such a good job of at what they do, and everybody is so dedicated to their craft. And Randip specifically, I worked with Randip for the longest. I've worked with Randip the longest out of anybody on our show, because I've worked with them in two different folds. I worked with them, 650 and HNIC Punjabi, and to see Randip grow in his career as well, it's obviously fantastic. And I was his producer for 650, not all the time because he had a specific show and he's a specific producer, but I would be the fill-in guy. Like I mentioned on 650, I would kind of work across the board for various shows, and I worked with Randip a lot, and he taught me a lot, and he's been obviously a great mentor. And on HNIC Punjabi, work with him on a daily basis, text with him on a daily basis. He was the MC at my wedding, him and Gopi, right? Like, those guys are so very close friends of mine. But we'll clash, we'll butt heads,
sure.
right? We'll get into it with one another. But that's part of what we think makes our show great, because we really have people that are passionate about it.
The family feeling,
right?
as
Like,
well.
exactly. Like, we'll be able to butt heads, and we'll be able to kind of go at each other's throats a little bit, because we are so passionate about it, because we deeply care about getting this show from a certain level to the next level. And that goes for everybody on the show. And I can confidently say that everybody cares deeply about it. It's not just the fact that you go there, you talk on TV for a couple of hours, and then you go home. It's more than that, right? And it's more than that because of our deep connection with the community, right? Because of our deep connection with the sport. And anytime there is something that we want to do better, we're always sharing our opinion with one another. And Randip and I, are, as the two leaders of the show, we're always in constant communication with one another.
It's because you guys have, like, you're all working towards one thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, very
common goal. Everybody might have different routes to get there.
But, like, everyone wants the show to get better. Everyone wants the show to get more views and more numbers and all that stuff.
Same way between us, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes we disagree with how certain things will go, but at the end of the day, we know it's like we want to get.
And it's all great. Like, once the show's over, we head out for a couple of drinks, and we enjoy it, right? We relax, and we kind of talk about life. We talk about what there is to do in this weekend, what's going on next, and then once the week starts, it's right back to work.
So, do you see, obviously a lot of it is hockey based, do you see more Punjabi sports shows? I know there were some growing up on, like, whether it be an Omni channel or other channels as well. I forgot what it was called, Punjabi Sports or something. I forgot what it was called. It used to be on in the mornings on Saturdays. But, like, do you see more like Sportsnet 650 version shows but in Punjabi, whether that be on Sportsnet itself, whether that be Omni, whether that be Red FM, whether that be Connect FM? Like, do you see that now happening?
I hope so. Like, I think that there is a big audience for it, right? Like, especially hockey. You look at, everybody knows an uncle who is a big hockey fan, right? And they will, whether the Canucks are doing good or not doing good, right? They'll turn on the TV and they'll watch the game, and they're always cheering for this team to do good. And, like, my mom, for example, right? Big Canucks fan. Like, she might not know all the players to this day, but there was a certain time when she knew all of them, and she can name you all of them. And so she is, like, somebody who would probably listen to that. I think we have the audience for somebody for that. I think we have the people that will listen to that kind of a show. So I think as long as the demand is there, which I believe it is, then we will see more of that. And I think, again, our language is just growing more. I think we're just starting to kind of come out of this shell. And so to answer your question, I think so, yeah. I
definitely think the language will help get people, like, for example, we're big football guys, you're a big football guy, maybe there's a football show out there. And then the language will definitely help people tune into more football, NFL specifically, right? Or basketball in this case too. So, like, the language will be definitely a help to help showcase the sport itself.
I like how it's going to be, like, two things, right? Like, it's going to be like, the sport's is what's going to get us in, but the Punjabi is what's going to help, like, our parents get into, right? So,
I agree.
You get, like, two ways.
I agree. Like, my I've like all a lot of my cousins' parents, like they'll ask me, "Hey, what's going on with the Canucks? Like they lost yesterday, right?" Like they might be casual viewers, but they are viewers.
Yeah.
And so like I think that's what's going to take it to the next level is just having more Punjabi. Like again, you know how many people that are immigrating to Canada, how many people that are immigrating to Vancouver, right? A lot of these people with the Canucks run now, like there's going to be more Canucks fans, right? So I think the audience is there for this to actually take off even more so.
All right, let's go into some other fun quick fire type questions here. Let's start off with this. Funny media story you've been a part of, like that you can share.
That I can share. Oh, this might be a tough one. I don't know if there was, maybe I should have thought of this before. Funny media story. Every week on here's what, okay, I'll put one of our Hockey Night colleagues on blast a little bit, but it will happen on live television. So, right, people saw it. One of our color commentators, maybe I won't say his name, but you can Google him. He was, so after the game ends, we always do a booth hit, right? So it'll be the commentators, the commentator and the color commentator will talk about the game that just happened, and they'll talk for about a minute, right? Randip guys on the desk will throw to them, and they'll talk about the game. And so we throw to him, and the commentator asks the color commentator a question, and all you see on the TV is a moving mouth, but no audio.
Yeah.
And we're like, and I'm in the control room panicking, like, what's going on? Like, put his mic up. Like, we're like, what the heck is going on? And we can't figure it out. And then I look at him, I'm like, he doesn't have a microphone. Like, he's not wearing his headset. He doesn't have his headset on. And we're like, it's all this panic. We throw back to Randip guys. And I'm like, put your headset on. And he runs back, puts his headset on. Randip throws back. And as soon as Randip throws, he's off camera. He just loses it. He's just dying. And this guy's like, he pats his head. He's like, sorry guys, I forgot my microphone. Like, and so he's just talking to the camera without anything. And we all in the back thought it was like some sort of technical issue. Turns out he wasn't even wearing his headset.
Okay, I forgot to ask this to Randip because I wanted to ask him, even whether it had been on or off camera when we had him on last time. I'll ask you this since you mentioned that. You've been on the producer side of things. You've been on air.
Yeah.
How do you deal with a headset in your ear? So, like for example, if this was properly ran show, and we had a producer telling us in your ear, you got commercial in 5 minutes. How do you like manage to? Because people might get distracted by like in the middle of talking. I might stop to hear what this guy is saying, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that on both ends? Because
like cut to commercial, fam.
Like so for the talent end of it. So it's harder. It's much harder as the host, which Randip is the host. So he has to balance all of that. Yeah. Right. He has to balance what the analysts are saying and then what the producer is saying. As me, as a talent, as an analyst, whenever I'm hearing the countdown, I am just trying to quickly wrap up my thoughts and then let Randip take over so we can throw a commercial. Yeah. As a producer, you're just trying to keep up with consistent communication, but also giving it at a time when he's not in the middle of talking. Yeah. Right. So I'll give him like 5 minutes, and then I'll give him a 4-minute count. Yeah. And then, but every time he's saying that, I will make sure I'm not saying it in the middle of him talking. Yeah. Right. Or if I gotta ask him a question, I'll just make sure he's like it's not in the middle of what he's talking about. Yeah. And sometimes like you try to not have those moments where you're asking questions, right? But a lot of the questions just might be like, or it might not be a question, it might just be more of a statement like, hey, we're dropping this, we're going to this next. Just letting him know. And so he needs to then kind of keep that in the back of his mind. Okay, we're not going to do that one, we're going to do that one.
Were you ever tempted to just make him laugh in the middle of
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Dude, burst out laughing.
There'll be moments like, something will happen and he'll have a little, he'll flub a little bit and I'll just like call him out and I was like, nice job. And I won't say that, but like, he might mess up his word or something. He might trip up and I'll just be like, yeah, good job. And he'll just look at me like when we're not on camera, right? Like something like there's a graphic on the camera, and just look at me like, stop it.
Because I've heard on the radio because again my morning commute is listening to Halford and Bruff usually on Sportsnet 650, and they're big on having their producers involved. So like you would hear Mike Halford's laughing in the middle of his trying to make a statement, and it's like sorry, my A-dog at the back is just yelling some funny stuff in his ear. It's like don't mess up.
It happens all the time.
Just going back to the hosting, I'm just like say like it's just like a insane debate going on. You're like, yo, this is good for the views, but like you have to cut the commercial. Like I don't want to stop this, but then
it's like you kind of have to balance that. It's a lot of that is on the fly. It's an audible, right? You got to figure it out like what you're doing, but for the most part, like your commercials don't get in the way of those kinds of things too much, because like you already have your kind of show segment timed out and you already know how much time you've got. Like generally speaking, if something is gonna be a very hot topic and a big debate, you're not gonna keep it at the end where you're so close to commercial. You're gonna lead with it or have it right off the top, right? But if something does go longer than what you expect and it's a really good debate, I'll just say, okay, drop the next issue, just keep going on this. Like just drop the next topic, Just
So it's not
keep
like
going.
say your show starts at 7, like 7:10, we have to cut to commercial. Like it can move.
No, there
right?
is. It is.
Like it have to be like at 7:10
Depends.
we're
It
commercial.
depends. It depends.
Oh,
Like,
I guess it could be like, well, that's a heated debate. We'll be back and we'll touch on it again.
Yeah,
Type of thing.
yeah.
Like, we'll get it on the other side.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like there'll be you'll have blocks where you can go longer and sacrifice what's on the other side of the break. So you can go like if you have this block scheduled for 5 minutes, you can go 7 or 8 minutes and sacrifice the 2 or 3 minutes on the other side and just say, don't worry, this was worth it. But then there's blocks where you have to go to break at 7:10 because on the other side of that, the game starts. So you can't miss the game, obviously, right? So nothing is more important than the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like no matter what we're talking about,
sure.
it's not important than the game. So like those kinds of things you cannot miss that. But then you can sacrifice your own kind of talk time.
What's your I made it moment, if you could recall any? I'm sure there is some.
Yeah, honestly, like again, I'm just so grateful to be in the industry.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, maybe being on air is obviously one of them, right? Being on air and getting to talk about HNIC Punjabi, getting to talk on HNIC Punjabi, that's one of them. Even on the radio, where you're got a chance to interview just so many great people. Got a chance to interview Brian Burke, like I mentioned that. Countless people that I can't even remember, right? Like Paul Bizanet comes to mind, George Laroque, Randip, and I hosted that show. Actually, it was a New Year's Eve show on Sportsnet 650. Being at the NHL draft in Vancouver, again, getting a chance to interview so many great players. Got a chance to interview Connor Bedard before he got drafted when he was still in Regina. I would say, like, I don't know if there's one moment. I think it's just a handful of moments where when you kind of look back at it, you're like, oh, wow, that was like really cool. Again, I'm still in it, right? I'm still in it. I'm still living it. So I don't know if there's like that moment that I've can like look back and say like that was that one moment. But when I do kind of overall look at it, it does obviously, gives me goosebumps to think about like, the people that I've gotten a chance to talk to.
What about your starstruck moment?
I don't know. Like, again, big Roberto Luongo fan. So got a chance to, ask him a question at when he got his number retired in Vancouver, and he was obviously doing a press conference. So got a chance to ask him a question that obviously when you're seeing so many NHL players and things like that, like it's hard to get starstruck, even though like, gotten a chance to, I think ask Crosby a question, JT Miller at the NHL All-Star game. But I don't get really starstruck necessarily, but Luongo was the one where I was really, really wanted to make sure I kind of got a question in, because obviously that is the guy that I grew up watching a lot.
Dream guest that you would like to interview then, because obviously you already did Luongo.
Well, I never got a chance to really.
It
was a question at a press conference, but Luongo would be at right. Like if I got an opportunity to talk to him one on one, like that'd be tremendous.
So what's the biggest guest you have interviewed then? Like that's not a press conference question. Yeah,
biggest guest. Maybe Connor Bedard.
Okay.
Brian Burke, on a number of occasions. Trying to think. Probably Brian Burke or Connor Bedard. I think there must be like Josh Palmer in the NFL.
Chargers fan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. Like it's sometimes
probably Bedard at this point.
I would say he was a little bit younger at that time. He was in the NHL. Yeah.
Well, now if the young people see this, they're gonna be like, oh, Connor Bedard. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
We'll get into some sports talk here, because since we know you're obviously an NHL guy and a slight NFL guy as well. Yeah. But before we get into the league, what's like your biggest sports fan pet peeve? For example, like I guess for example for me would be like people that are way too biased in terms of hate watching or non-hate watching, like you see on Twitter all the time. Or
I got one actually. Here's mine, and I was just talking to a friend about this. Is that I hate the use of the word generational. Like I absolutely hate it when people use this word, because it seems like it comes across for every single first overall draft pick in every draft. This guy's generational. No, he's not. Like for the most, he's a really, really, really good player, but he's not generational for the most part, right? Like there are players that obviously are. We know them, right? Crosby, Ovechkin, McDavid, Bedard, Matthews, right? Nathan McKinnon, no. Come on, Larry, you know what I mean? Okay. Like, there's like the other players I named are well above that, in my opinion.
I have McKinnon ahead of Matthews, to be fair.
Now,
that's me.
But a lot of that comes down to like, your take on the position, right? Because this guy's much better at playing defense, and again, maybe McKinnon is on the cusp. I don't know, but I'm just saying, right? There's players that are there's players that are for sure with a bullet, and then there's probably everybody else. And I think everybody else falls into that elite category.
Like there's the surefire ones are McDavid, Crosby, Ovechkin, and Bedard for me.
Yeah.
Like Matthews again on the cusp.
Sure.
And McKinnon on the cusp, right? McKinnon kind of like does have the accolades as well.
But you know why it's not generational? Is like how many players like McKinnon are there? Like, not to burst McKinnon's bubble, he's obviously
like
one of my favorite players to watch.
Yeah.
If you're calling McKinnon generational, you should be calling Draisaitl generational.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
For me, it's the same thing in the NFL. Like Peyton Manning didn't start off the greatest, but he was generational.
Yeah.
No one knew Brady at all, so he ended up becoming generational, but he didn't start. But like Andrew Luck was generational if it wasn't for the injuries that shortened his career. But Trevor Lawrence, I'm a huge Trevor Lawrence fan. I loved him at Clemson, but yes, he may have been generational coming out, but I guess he isn't generational now, right? Then you throw out Joe Burrow's name. Joe Burrow is a very good NFL player, but when he came out of LSU, he had one great year.
Yeah.
That year was generational, but he didn't have a run like Trevor Lawrence did, which I understood why he was considered generational.
Yeah.
So yeah, to your point.
But that's what I mean. Like that's every top quarterback in the league in the last couple of years. Yeah. But every quarterback in the last couple of years, you're calling that.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard that for
Williams this year.
I've heard that for Caleb. Heard that for Jaden Daniel.
Yeah.
Like all these, like you hear it for every player.
Exactly.
It's coming out.
If
It's
you're
like
a quarterback in your top 5 projected, you're like, okay, yeah, you're generational.
dude, and generational to me is generational is once in a generation.
Yeah.
And that might get
Some might be two in, like Crosby and Ovechkin.
We saw Crosby and Ovechkin, right? Crosby and McDavid was technically the same generation, but they're 10 years apart.
Yeah.
Right? Like Matthews and Ovechkin and Crosby were 11 years apart.
I love how you're into the conversation.
You asked me a pet peeve. Like, it just blows my mind how that doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense.
Is there a case where you're not like a generational talent, but you end up being a generational talent?
Yeah, that's a really, that's what Brady did. It's it's an interesting conversation because a lot of the time you think of generational, like for me, at least the way I thought of it first was you have to be like 15 years old and you know for sure you're going to play in the league.
James.
Yeah.
Right? LeBron, Crosby, Bedard, Ovechkin, all these guys, right? When they're like Crosby's getting interviewed when he's 8.
Yeah.
Right? Like 10 years they know this guy's going to be a star.
Yeah.
Right? So like that's different. Like, but the Brady situation is interesting because like you can obviously become generational over time. It just sometimes
Mahomes was the same.
Yeah, it just takes a while, right?
For me, it's more like the GOAT debate. Like, for example, I could argue Messi, Ronaldo.
Right.
We grew up in that era.
Sure.
I cannot argue Gretzky and Crosby. Yes, we know Gretzky's a great one. We know, like, if you do enough research,
the more of a case is like LeBron and
and Jordan is like the biggest one, and Kareem for the older things right there. So like for me, that's like it's tough. And plus, like sometimes the greatest player doesn't mean you're the greatest talent. For example, Tom Brady is the GOAT.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Some people say Patrick Mahomes is the greatest player they have seen actually play it.
And then that's a good one for like Gretzky and McDavid too, and Crosby as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Like with the greatest player, for me, it's like, yes, accolades matter.
Yeah.
Right? So when Messi won that World Cup, he officially surpassed Ronaldo for me. Even though I always had Messi ahead, that officially solidified it. Yeah. Some people still have Ronaldo as their GOAT.
Yeah.
Like I don't like the debate, especially if it's not in your era. Yeah. Yes, I might put Jordan ahead of LeBron, but I always go with the way like the players I've seen in my lifetime. So in the NBA, for example, for me, as much as I love Kobe, as you can see, there's a book here. Yeah. I acknowledge that LeBron, in my lifetime, LeBron's the greatest from me watching the sport. Kobe second, Tim Duncan's third, Steph is probably fourth. Like, this is just me spitballing at the moment. I haven't done the research or anything. Sure. So like the GOAT, I hate when and then like that's where I hate the most. If I'm a fan of a person, like for example, I picked against the Canucks for the Oilers. No one bashing me for anything, but I'm saying like people would be on social media bashing me like, oh, you're not really a Canucks fan because you picked against it. Like, no, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm doing my quote unquote job by making an educated pick at the time I made it.
Definitely.
Right? So
I low-key did. I made a funny edit about it.
But I picked the Oilers too, but in my bracket.
But at the end of the day, it's like I'm not. Or if I pick against the other pet peeve I have is like if I pick against your player, I don't think he's terrible. At the same time.
And
definitely.
Another thing is like, if you say, because I did pick the Canucks, but I actually had valid reason to back it up. Like, you're like, I'm not being biased, right? Definitely. I'm like, okay, you know, yes, Sealaws is a good goalie. I think Sealaws would be better than Skinner in the series. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think we have a line or multiple lines to not shut down, obviously, like slow down McDavid. Right. And we did. Which we did in a few games, definitely. Right? It's just hopefully Pettersson just showed up.
For example, like I had the Colts finishing third in our division. We both did, right? Yeah. Like, so it's not like that's what I hate with the most. It's like, or you use the fandom too much. Like you have so much hate. Like I hate the Boston Celtics as a Laker fan. But I acknowledge that like their last year's run.
It's like your
so
fan.
You can't let your fandom kind of get in the way of what is
You could
real.
use it as a fun debate, as a
Sport-
joke.
Yes.
Totally.
Sports
yeah.
talk's like opinion based, right? Like
Yeah.
that doesn't mean necessarily what you say is wrong
Yeah.
because it's different from me, right?
Yeah.
Like especially with predictions, right? When you go like people are saying, how the hell do you have? So let's say the Jaguars are the Colts, or like how the hell do you have the Canucks are the Oilers?
Yeah.
Like you can't criticize me. You can't say I'm wrong right now
Yeah.
because it didn't
There
happen
might be
yet.
some crazy ones.
Right.
For example, the Sharks are winning the cup next year. That's gonna be crazy.
But like you can't say that's wrong.
You can't say it's wrong, but you can say it's
You
stupid.
can say it's wrong in like 9 months from like 6
Yeah.
months
I mean,
from
I
now.
did say the Giants would be better than the Cowboys last year.
There you
Obviously, I was dead wrong.
Yeah,
but
Yeah. But like
I
at the
gave
moment,
my reasons for it,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
but yeah, no, I love this conversation
Yeah.
because like the pet peeves are like there are
yeah.
between the three of us.
I'm not a big basketball fan, but like, yeah, one for me is just like when people hate on LeBron for
Yeah.
no reason.
Yeah.
Again, like to me, again, I'm not a big basketball fan. I don't know the stats or anything like that, but like to me, it's just he's one of the greatest to ever do it.
Acknowledge greatness.
Right,
That's
exactly.
Yeah.
I can't imagine hating on somebody.
Low key, the LaFlop and LeBrick names are pretty funny though.
But no, I acknowledge like at the end of the day, just acknowledge like yes, I don't like the Oilers, but like I said earlier,
McDavid,
I
right?
want to see McDavid win.
Yeah.
Like you respect what they did. You just
totally.
have to respect what
And
they did.
I think everybody who grew up a Crosby fan, and that like there was a big debate with Crosby and Ovechkin,
And I
right?
was an Ovechkin.
And when
Yeah.
when Crosby got those cups, and then when Ovechkin won in 2018, like I think everybody, whether you're a Crosby fan or not, was so happy for Ovechkin.
See, soccer. When you go, if you're ever on soccer Twitter, it's the opposite.
It's
It's
opposite
the
from everything,
worst.
right? And
It's
it's
the
always one or the other.
Soccer is like the one sport where you're gonna have the most bias. It's be crazy.
Trust me, like we have a group chat with Jeevan and our other cousins.
But just get hated on Man
We
United.
get hated on Man
Get
United
shit.
because they're terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Ever since Ferguson retired, but
Definitely.
dude, we could be talking about this all day, so we'll
Yeah.
just wrap it there. But sticking with the sports talk, let's go NHL very quickly. How do you think the Canucks will do next year? Because now there are expectations and there are some personnel changes. We're seeing rumors about the goaltending
Yeah,
situation.
that's always scary, right? The tough situation with goaltending, especially because like we never got a fair look at Thatcher Demko in the playoffs, right? Like
Yeah.
they obviously had that bubble Demko a couple of years ago. We would have liked to see that in the playoffs this past season. So it was, I think everybody was looking forward to kind of seeing a healthy Demko in the regular season, and we should have that hopefully, but we just don't know about that currently. And then obviously now the most recent Artur Shilov's injury perhaps is also kind of throwing a little bit of a damper into things.
Yeah.
But regardless of all that, it's still very early. I think the Canucks will hopefully bounce back with two healthy goaltenders. Once the season starts, and once it does start, I'm very excited to see what this team can do. Now, listen, I think people underestimate how hard it is to get to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs and then get to Game 7 of that, especially against a team.
Especially when you're the underdog.
Yeah, when you're
with
the
what
underdog.
happened to Brock Besser in Game 7, and then you're playing your third stringer in net.
They're exactly right, and that's so. And so theoretically, though, with a healthy team, right, with a healthy Brock Besser, with a healthy goaltender and Thatcher Demko, you should get to that point. But that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Right. That's not the way it works.
I think it's playoffs. Everyone's injured.
Everybody's injured.
They're
and
hiding it,
it's
right?
one bounce. It's one bounce, right?
Yeah.
And it can go in your favor. It can go against your favor. Last year, the Canucks were a team that was the underdog, and I think they took that energy and they were able to run with it. They were able to fuel it. I think Rick Tocchet does such a good job of kind of getting that energy and feeding it to the team as well. But we saw times in the playoffs where they just weren't playing a lot well.
Yeah.
Right? Like we saw Game 7, you should be so energized. You should be ready to get out there, and they were kind of lackluster in that
Until the
game.
third period,
And then the third period happens, and then they were able to come back a little bit, but obviously not enough. But they did that a handful of times in the regular season. They did it a couple of times in the playoffs where they were always bouncing back late. But I would like to see a little bit more consistency, because at the end of the day, that consistent aspect is what's going to get them over the top.
Yeah.
And they lost obviously a handful of pieces, but they obviously gained some as well. That blue line is something that's needed to have some work on for a while. I think they still are missing that top 4 defenseman, especially on that right side. We'll see what they can add, if they're able to add. That's always a tough position to add, obviously, too. My expectations are that they make the playoffs. What happens when you get to the playoffs is anybody's guess.
I mean, coming into the season, I think if you're coming into last season and coming into this season, this squad is better than what they had last year, especially the forward group.
The forward group is definitely
forward group
better.
is
And I
deep.
think like nobody could have expected, I think, the seasons from guys like Dakota Joshua or that third line kind of playing the way that they did.
Yeah.
I think nobody could have expected the team to have Elias Lindholm. Like, you pick him up at the deadline.
randomly,
that was,
Yeah.
I did not expect
Who would
that.
have thought that, right?
Yeah.
Like, his name was floating around, and then all of a sudden,
He's
like,
a
the
Canuck.
Canucks are interested. Like, that's great. And it was very early. It was like January.
Yeah.
Right when it happens too. So like we'll see what Patrick Elvine and the team can do this year. But last year was just such a great year. It was such a surprise that I think if people are expecting that this year, they might be a little bit disappointed. Yeah. But at the same time, it should be an exciting season.
That's what I'm worried about. At the same time, I'm looking at the division. Yes, the Oilers are going to still be the team, even though with all the offer sheet stuff, who knows what's going to happen there. But again,
like I think they're better. That they'll be good.
I think they're better. You have Oilers, you have Vegas.
Yeah. See, after that, I don't know.
It's up for grabs.
I mean, even with Vegas, like I want to say Vegas will be better, but then there's like they lost Chandler Stevenson, they lost Jonathan Marsh. So
I think the Canucks.
I still think they'll compete with the Canucks for a second. That's just me.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they're better than the Kings. That's just me. But again, we'll see how the season plays out that way.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the NFL then, because you did recently a fantasy football thing.
Yeah. Is your team stacked?
Sorry?
Is your team stacked?
I think so. You know what? I'm in 3 leagues. The league that I am the commissioner of, and the league that I am most near and dear to my heart, that one hasn't happened yet. That one's this weekend.
Okay.
But the other 2 leagues that I've done, I like my teams in them. Yeah. I'm a big running back guy. I know like some people are wide receiver heavy. Some people are running back heavy.
Me.
You're wide receiver? I'm
No, last year I drafted a lot of running backs.
Well, I mean in general in the NFL, he's a wide receiver guy.
Like, I'm a wide receiver fan, yeah.
I'm a running back fan. So that's why I would pick more running backs generally. And I also like there's not many of them. So I try to grab them as early as I can.
What's one
I
pick?
need tips because like I have my first one with this weekend.
I don't know,
I think personally, because from what I did, I think I went 2 running back heavy.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't have many good receivers. The only one I had was Diggs and he fell off. Last year.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, if I pick a running back first round, like I'm gonna try my best to pick a wide receiver or vice versa.
For sure.
Like you gotta get those
I'll be
weapons.
honest. In my league, we go half PPR. I went 3 straight running backs last 3 or 4 years.
Scoring.
Yeah. But again, like most people will be like, what the hell are you doing? But I've made playoffs every year, and 4 of the 5 years I've made finals. So I haven't won.
Listen to you.
I haven't won everyone though.
Yeah.
My record in the finals like 1-1-2. There was a draw in there too. It was like the DeMar Hamlin game.
Yeah.
There was like 2. I think there was like 2 Bengals, and then there was like somebody had a Buffalo Bill. Like I had Josh Allen, or he had Josh Allen, I think. So there was like 4 players playing in that game, so we couldn't decide on who's gonna win. We just called it a draw.
What's one for this draft that you just did? What's one sleeper pick you're happy with?
I like Jameson Williams. I never picked him out. Actually, maybe I did. I can't remember. I like Jameson Williams though.
Yeah.
I feel like he's gonna do well. I'm a big fan of Debo because obviously he had that year a couple of seasons ago where he just popped off. Still waiting for him to kind of get back to that track as well, because he's that hybrid kind of running and wide receiver, right? He can do it all.
But they added Ayuk again.
They still have Ayuk. I thought he was going to not be there, so that might have gotten his value higher, but that never happened. And you know what? I think a lot of people are going to be sleeping on Calvin Ridley. He's going pretty late right now in a lot of these rounds. So like what will happen with him? He's obviously on a new team this year. Let's see what he can do.
So like, is there really a difference? Like, if you know NFL and you know fantasy, is it 2 different things, or is it still?
Like
does
it
correlate?
Into the NFL as a sport, and then how much of that is it?
I love
different from the fantasy side of things.
I love the sport of football. Like I love it. I think the sport is awesome. It's just I don't have like I'm a Chargers fan for sure. I just don't have that same like kind of passion necessarily the way that I do for example hockey with the Canucks and with other NHL teams, right? And so I have that passion for my fantasy football team though.
I have a question for you.
I'll just watch football a lot and be so invested into my team.
Chargers are on the last week of the season. They have to win to make the playoffs. Yeah. However, you're
going against Herbert and Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, that, or you have a player that needs to put up points and they're playing that Chargers team, and that gets you to the playoffs or the finals or whatever the case may be. What are you going for?
I'll go fantasy football, man.
See, I'm the opposite. That's why I didn't want to do fantasy, because my Colts fandom will still be ahead.
But
that's fine, right? Because you have that fandom.
Yeah.
If you have that fandom from your heart, that you're a big Colts fan, that nothing is going to get in the way of that.
Exactly.
Right? Like your fantasy team is not going to surpass that.
We do fantasy pick'ems, and a couple of times I did pick against the Colts, but I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Yeah. Your fantasy team's not going to surpass that. I'm a Chargers fan. I'm a supporter. If they do well, I'm really happy for them. I wish that they do well. I'm a huge fan of Justin Herbert, right? I love the way he plays, but like like, if it's my fantasy team and them, then obviously I'm gonna go with my fantasy team because I don't have that same connection. Now, listen, if the Chargers were a little bit of a better team, it's a different scenario, right? But current state Chargers,
The one pick I helped me and my friend earlier this week was James Cook. I think he might actually cook.
You were definitely pissed when they blew that lead against the Jaguars.
It was such
I was annoyed too because again,
a crap show last year, right? Like, and it's so annoying. Like, coaching staff with this team for the last maybe 5 years, more than that, probably their entire like lifetime, has been atrocious, right? And especially with Brandon Staley, it was not looking good. It was not, exactly. So looking forward to the year.
All right, it's time to build your perfect Canucks player.
Okay. You will be challenging Randip.
You'll be challenging Randip. So, all right. So like, we'll give you a moment to talk shit after how no matter how good you feel about your player. But we're gonna start off with height/body.
So we're giving you different attributes.
And
you're gonna name a Canucks player during their Canucks tenure specifically. So for example, Matt Sundin has to be only in that half year he played.
Okay.
No repeat answers. If you do want to change your mind, you could swap answers.
Okay.
So starting off with height/body.
Height/body. So what player would I want in the Canucks?
In that build.
Let's go with like how about a Gino Ojic?
Okay. Next one, skating.
Quinn Hughes.
All right.
Stick handling.
Marcus Naslund.
Shot.
Should have chosen Naslund for that.
You can swap it if you want.
Shot. Any type of shot.
I guess the full balance.
How about like a Ryan Kessler?
Okay.
Playmaking.
Henrik Sedin.
Overall defense.
Overall defense. It has to be a forward. It could be anybody. Anybody. Overall defense. How about a Alex Edler?
Fighting.
Donald Brashear.
Hitting.
I should have chose Gino for that one. Hitting. Let's go with Dan Hammies with hip checks.
Okay. IQ.
IQ. Should have chose. I don't know. I feel like these are no repeat answers makes it a little bit tougher.
You could swap. I mean, you have a bure in there. You haven't used it.
I know I haven't used a bure yet.
And that's the last.
Yeah, honestly, this is the last valid one.
The hitting one's the last one.
No. IQ will be the last skater question.
Okay, got it.
So if you want to throw in bure here, or you want to swap some stuff around.
I'll use bure up. How about I use the I'm trying to remember where it is left it at. This is a terrible segment. It's such a bad job.
No, it's okay.
How about skating for Bure, obviously.
Okay. So taking out Quinn Hughes.
Quinn Hughes will get out. We'll swap.
You could put him in IQ, I guess. I don't know, but
or how about we go? Quinn Hughes will go into.
You still have another Sedin.
I have a Daniel.
For IQ.
I was thinking that too. I don't know. Is he known for his IQ? They're more together. You know what I mean? Okay, Quinn Hughes can replace. Quinn Hughes can go to IQ.
Sure. IQ, okay.
And the last one, I think we already know the answer. Goalie.
Yeah, Luongo.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
So your player, just to repeat, height body of Gino Ojic, so his build.
Yeah.
With
Bure
skating now. Stick handling of Marcus Naslund.
Yeah.
You have the
Kessler shot.
The Henrik Sedin playmaking. The overall defense of Alex Edler. The fighting of Brashear and the hitting of Hamuse. With Quinn Hughes IQ, and if you want to put them all into one and you want to put them in net, you got Bertolo Luongo.
Sure. Oh my God, this guy seems like a mess.
You're supposed to hype up your guy.
You're trying to hype up your guy. Right?
This is a competition.
You have a couple of repeats in there with him and Deep.
Okay,
so
obviously
some of the obvious ones are in there.
Henrik Sedin, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's the obvious one. But you have a couple of repeats. We'll see. We'll eventually make YouTube shorts and TikToks out of this, and we'll let the fans.
Well, don't let anyone say that my team is a mess. My team is really good.
But Raja, it was fun. Before we let you go here, though, we just want you to share advice of a guy who
before you go, there's Pataki going on for you, celebrating that you're on the pod, right?
But just shares advice of how people want to get into the media scene. Like you got into it right out of high school, something I wish I could have done, but I didn't. So maybe someone that's up and coming out of high school now or in high school that wants to take that path you did? What's your advice to them?
Say yes to everything. Every work opportunity that you get, say yes to everything. Do whatever it is that you can do, especially on your own. Like you guys are doing this podcast. If you want to do it, right? Just start working on it. You might get, one view to begin with, but you're getting reps in, you're getting experience, you're learning how to edit, you're learning how to shoot, you're learning how to talk into a microphone professionally, right? Like all of that stuff matters. And then once you are, able to showcase your craft, somebody out there is going to notice. That's going to give you an opportunity. So whether it is, podcasting, whether it's talking about sports, whether it's writing, whether it's whatever it might be, producing, editing, no matter what, shooting on your phone, creating content more for the digital and social media space, whatever it is that you want to get into, just do it. And don't be worried that this is going to take too much work and no one's going to listen, or no one's going to watch. Just get into it, start doing it. And then I promise you, like, if you work on it hard enough, somebody will notice and people will obviously get a hold of you to, obviously do bigger and better things. And, hopefully you can obviously make a long career out of it. But, the ideal thing is for you to honestly just kind of invest in yourself.
All right, man. If anyone wants to reach out to you, plug your stuff, where can people find you?
Yeah, Twitter at @Sher_Raja, SHER_RAJA, Instagram at Raja Shergill as well.
Everything will be definitely linked down below here, Raja. So much fun, man. We could have definitely gone longer. Time went by fast. Appreciate you taking the time for coming out and coming on. And for everybody else watching, all his links will be linked down below. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Peace.